Hello, friendly faces.
Hey.
Hello, Saskia. Hello, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, Mert. Hello, Mira. Good to see you.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Maripi. Hello, Ener. Hello, Ömer. Yes.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, hi. So I think I can start now. If Hi, everyone. This is Kübra Uzun. I am coordinating the project named Through the Window. Let me talk a little about the project, then I will give the mic to Simone. Then we will start the conversation session. The project is based on literally the word solidarity, and is an online project that digitally brings together queer artists and activists from the Netherlands and Turkey and enhances the possibilities of solidarity and coordination. The project, supported by the Consulate General of the Netherlands in Istanbul and created by the artist Ömer Tevfik Erten, consists of online exhibition and two parties that follow two talks, which we are having the first party and the talk today. Singer, DJ, and LGBTI plus rights activist, me, Kübra Uzun, is the coordinator of the project, and the online talks are organized by writer and philosopher Simone van Saarloos. Through the Window, which will take place between Istanbul and Amsterdam Pride, between July and September, is holding a queer activism talk hosted by Club COVID today, and Kültigin Khan, Akbulut, Lilith, HB, Soros, Tayar, and Maha Yosef is the participated people as speakers, and 1 hour long, then we will follow the party after. And our online exhibition, which is mixed by 10 Dutch and 10 Turkish artists, is going to open in September the 1st, World Peace Day. And we will have the second talk on that day, which is titled Artistic Queers. And we will have the second party, and we will say goodbye and farewell to the project for a little while. This is more or less what are we doing. And now I'm giving the mic to Simone, and thank you everyone for your participation. Simone, it's all on yours.
Yes, thank you. So you just started with the end, but we're now at the beginning, because this is our first gathering, and I'm tempted to try and say everybody's name whom I can read. Because I want to create, I know this is just an artificial attempt, but I would love to have some online intimacy with y'all. So I'm just going to say hi, Ates. Hi, Daphne. Hi, Aisa. Hi, Dilara, Emre, Ingrid, Jessica. Mama, already know that Mama is here. Kadir, Mira, hello. Hello, Saskia. Hi, Mert. Hello, Maripi. Hello, Öner. Hi, Omer. Hey, so. Hi, Maha. Hi, Lilith HB. I already know. Hi, Kultigan. And there's somebody else now. Oriana. Hello. I hope I said it as correct as possible. Just reading it off the screen here. So my name is Simone, and yeah, thank you so much, Kübra, for introducing, and also thank you for Omer for this project, Through the Window project. So as Kübra was already saying, we really started this as a solidarity project, mostly for people who are losing income at this current moment, especially in Istanbul context, which Kübra knows a lot about, and we might discuss today as well. The nightlife dropping away, having no stages to perform on, etc., etc. So tonight we will be discussing queer activism And when I say discussing, I'm already doing it wrong, because we will not be trying to give some sort of a definition of queer activism or try to give an overview, because it's of course much too broad of a subject, and it's also so defined by doing the work itself instead of formulating too many thoughts about it, which I think is also important. But we really want to centralize the four speakers tonight and talk about their practice and learn from each other. So that will be a bit of the structure, is that each of the speakers will speak, and then we will enter into conversation. And you're super welcome to also ask questions. And if you want to keep that in mind during their talks, you could already enter the chat room, or like raise your hand. But yeah, you can keep that in mind. If you have a burning question, we will get to that. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here, and also very much to our speakers, who will be Lilith HB, Maha Youssef, Kultigin Khan Akbulut, and So Rusty. And I will not give bios because they will introduce themselves. And just to refer once more back to the project Through the Window, Kubra already said we will be opening the exhibition on September 1st, and 20 artists will be included from the Netherlands and from Turkey. And while we are discussing today each of everyone's practices, we will keep COVID in mind, since that's how this project started. So you might have some questions around online organizing, or So, for example, just came back from the protest in Amsterdam, Black, queer, and trans resistance Black Pride protest. Like, how's that going right now while we are social distancing? But I also know that, for example, in Turkey, from what I heard, the restrictions are more, or how do you say, like heavier or stricter than in the Netherlands, for example. So we might also overlap and discuss some of those context differences. I'm going to give the floor to Lilith HB.
I am Lilith HB, and I am an English teacher. I am a gender neutral language planner, and I am also a drag performer studying art. And I started to discover my identity and my sexuality during high school, probably. I met with the queer activism at the university first, and I was lucky to study at the Boğaziçi University, one of the most independent universities in Turkey. And actually, in their contract about our rights and our responsibilities, they include equality, and especially specified on queer people. That's why it's a really safe place for queer people to study. And we used to have a student club too. It is one of the rare students club at university in Turkey. And I feel really blessed about that, because I met with the queer activism there, and I had a chance to discover myself more, and I had chance to defend myself more. And as a result, I got my diploma. I got graduated, but unfortunately, people consider teachers as a role model for students, and that's why being an open, queer, non-binary, transgender teacher is not preferred by most of the private schools, and I really faced with many discrimination and troubles on that. And I always find actually the relief expressing myself through my body, and that's why I prefer performing art as a way of expressing my feelings, sometimes my anger, sometimes my, let's say, sadness, and etc. And after that, I realized that mainly I got involved with English, and I teach English actually. And I used to be expressed and called by he, him, and I was not feeling to be called as a man or he and him. And then I started to do research on gender neutral language and having not to be assigned. I don't want to be assigned when people talk about me. That's why I prefer they, them as my pronouns. And I also want to, I am really interested in researching on this too. And right now, it is really difficult to studying on any area in Turkey focusing on gender, because let's say you are going to study gender and language, unfortunately academicians say, okay, you can study sociology, but I want to study linguistics. It is different. But unfortunately we are limited in even in academics, not in jobs or in K-12 schools, but also in academics. And that's why I am trying to more focus on art and my artistic features. And right now we are coordinating a project that is called Transformative Art Project for Activists, because for my experience, art is a very strong way to express our activism and advocacy. And that's why I prefer art as a way of advocacy. And I think a lot of people prefers this. And that's why we come up with a project for activist people, but not only in LGBTI, but also women, but also body and disability, but also immigration and refugee, and but also speciesism and ecology. We chose these 5 teams for our project because these five teams are not staying in the mainstream media, and they are having problems with having the visibility in mainstream galleries or having the exhibitions and etc. That's why we wanted to create an area in which we can stay in and express our advocacy and feelings with solidarity, with other teams and with other people who are marginalized. And it is like a residency project for 10 people, 10 artists, focusing on these 5 teams. And we are trying to live together here for 45 days. Yes, it is like we are sharing all these household stuff and etc. We also have some workshops. We aim 3 main things through these workshops. First thing, we want to have a non-violent, effective communication wave. And second thing, we want to improve the artist in terms of their academic career. And third one is about our advocacy areas and empowering us or artists through these workshops actually. And after this workshops and all this residency process, we aim to make an exhibition and create the area that we deserve actually. That's all I say.
Yeah. And can you say something about how long you've now been living together from these 45 days?
Today is the, let's say, 12th day.
And where are you exactly? Like you're in a house together and you're currently in a
house in nature. We don't say the place because of privacy and security issues, concerns actually. But it is a really beautiful place in nature. There are nothing but trees and animals here. And we are going through a vegan process, by the way. We all of the food that we eat and etc. are vegan. And if you follow Trans Art Act, actually, on Instagram, you may see where we are, what are we going through. We are sharing them on online.
Yeah, it was just shared in the chat also. Thank you. Yeah. And how are you currently feeling 12 days in?
12 days in, actually, we are really excited because when we first started to think about this project, it was 1 year ago. And all this year long, we have been thinking, we have been creating, sometimes destroying the plans and remaking them, and etc. And we gave a lot of efforts, and seeing that it is actually realizing right now, it's really makes us feel excited and happy and proud, and seeing the results and seeing all these people getting connected and we have some workshops, but for me, the speeds in between these 10 artists are much more better and effective than the workshops that we prepared for them. And I feel really satisfied when I observe all of these.
And when you say you've been preparing for a year together, and
Yeah.
what does the team consist of? Like, how did you get together and how did it start?
Yeah, actually we are 3 coordinators, Yunus Emre Demir and Özgürcan Taşçı. Özgürcan Taşçı is also an queer artist, and Yunus Emre Demir is also a queer activist and participates in Istanbul Pride Committee for years. And Özgürcan Taşçı is also. We know each other. Actually, we met each other through activism, and Özgürcan actually came up with the idea at the first, because as a queer artist, Özgürcan themselves actually goes through those limitations and invisibility problems. That's why it was Özgürcan's idea at the beginning, and we also participated and added our feelings and our observations, actually, because for us, TAPA is a result of the necessity that we observed.
Yes. Thank you so much. And we will talk more also about your drag performance practice, and I'm super curious about your research on gender neutral language also. But I do want to give the floor to Maha Youssef.
Yeah, hi, hello everyone, and thank you for hosting this event. So my name is Maha Youssef, born and raised in Cairo, Egypt, and I've moved to the Netherlands in 2015 to seek asylum. And for the last 10 years of my life, I've been advocating for LGBTI rights in Egypt and in Sudan. As a co-founder and currently the chairperson of Bidaya organization. Since I came to the Netherlands, I've been engaged in so many activities, but now I'm working with COC in Netherlands within the asylum team. I'm working on a project for knowledge sharing and capacity building between European organizations that work on asylum issues in whole Europe. And I'm also one of the co-founders of Sehaq, which is a queer refugee group that is based in Amsterdam. We have started working since May 2017. And Sehaq basically is a refugee-led collective that tries to raise awareness, host community events, create safer spaces with a big focus on lesbian, trans, and non-binary asylum seekers, refugees, and also undocumented people in the Netherlands. We are also trying to center more the experiences of refugees from the MENA region, because all of the people working in Sehaq come mainly from Middle East and North Africa. So we felt that we are more engaged with the culture. And that's why we are trying to center these experiences. Sehaq in Arabic, it means darkness, which is a slur that have been used for centuries to insult lesbians. So we have been trying to reclaim this word. And we are also trying to adopt a leftist feminist approach to politics. Sehaq is also trying to create solidarity networks between Dutch-based queer and trans refugees diaspora community, and also activists and communities in the Global South and Middle East and North Africa specifically.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can you say a little bit more in sort of like give some maybe examples that you feel are legible to a larger group? What the kind of organizing that Sehaq does?
Well, our main things that we do are the parties. So we try to organize parties where we can celebrate our culture. So whether it's food, whether music, dancing, we try to value our culture. We try to give a space for the queer refugees who cannot find what they can relate to in mainstream dominated white spaces. But beside the parties, we also do things like we do protest, we organize panel discussions, we organize workshops. We try to document the cases of LGBT asylum seekers that are subjected to violence, for an example. We try to refer asylum seekers and refugees to lawyers or psychologists. It's more based on our experiences, so it's not like we give legal advices or try to be in that field, but it's more like based on our experience and based on what we have been through as refugees ourselves. We try to share our knowledge together and try to learn from each other and build this solidarity and support between our community members.
Yes, and when you're saying about white spaces or like white gay, white LGBT spaces in the Netherlands, you're also describing, right, like making space for your own culture, how you phrase it, right? And how's this tension? Like, is it about, how do you feel this tension between both creating, as Lilith was also saying, about creating a space for yourself and allowing to just sort of develop within that, but then also being up against spaces outside of that, and especially in the Netherlands, these white spaces, as you were saying?
Yeah, well, I think this was the whole idea of actually creating Sehaq, because most of us, when we arrive to the Netherlands, all what we can see is white gay bars that is very excluding queer refugees and migrants, people of color. They're also excluding lesbians, excluding trans people, excluding non-binary people. So the whole idea was to try to create a safe space where we can present who we are, where we can find each other, where we can be safe, where we can express and talk about our experiences and our what we suffer through the asylum procedures, for an example, and within the Dutch community. So this was the whole idea about building that space. I don't know how to describe it, but I believe that Sehaq in the last 3 years have managed to create a small community that is very supportive, that's very taking care of each other, trying to like embracing our culture, our music, our food, trying to help each other, support each other. You find that a lot of people, for example, in the party can be talking about politics and dancing at the same time. A lot of projects are being created within the space based on what we see and based on what the things that we're talking about. So yeah, I believe this was the main idea of creating the space in the first place, to find something that we can mostly relate to and to really take good care of each other in those things that we're living through.
Yeah, I think to me you just described the epitome of white gay culture or homonormativity by saying that being at a party and discussing politics while also dancing, right? Instead of having this idea of like, oh, don't discuss politics, that's too difficult in a party space or something like that. I was wondering when you were when Lilith was saying about mainstream media and what you're describing right now about Sehaq, it sounds like it's really about like finding each other and not in any way about larger media representation. Is that Is that correct when I'm like seeing that?
Well, it depends on what kind of media we want to be represented in. Like, we do get a lot of offers, for example, from a lot of newspapers and websites who want to, who want us to talk about the work that we're doing. But it depends on what kind of message we want to deliver, and it depends on how are we perceived. How is the work that we're doing is perceived. We have, of course, a lot of people who feel that we are very exotic people and it's good to talk about them, and oh, look, the people from the Middle East and North Africa. So it depends really on what kind of media we want to engage with and cooperate with.
Yeah, and I'm also asking that because I think that maybe, and we can discuss this more together, this is also a contextual difference, right? Where in the Netherlands, there's such an attempt to hijack LGBT issues or to sort of put them on a platform in mainstream media, because it's also a Dutch export product. But it's as you were describing, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, you can also see that they only care about what are refugees doing here? Why they came specifically to our country and didn't go somewhere else, and also about I believe that they don't really focus on why we came in the first place. I think that most of the people within the Dutch community are very ignorant and they don't have enough information when it comes to the politics that's happening in the global south. Things that related to occupation, things that are related to colonization, and also like Egypt as an example. A lot of European countries and the US, they're selling weapons to Egypt, and in exchange of that, Europe is very silent when it comes to the rights of LGBTI people in Egypt. And I believe it's the same for a lot of countries in the global south. So I think that this is also part of the things that we're trying to do, is to narrate our stories, to talk about not only our experience here in the Netherlands, but also about our experiences from where we came from. To show Dutch people that the struggle is not really about having a house or a job, or it's the struggle about being forced to leave your community, being forced to leave your family, to leave everything behind and have to flee away, only to come to find that you are not really welcomed, like the media and the government is trying to tell us. So yeah, I believe it's a very big discussion. It's a very intersectional discussion that needs a very long time to discuss and to evaluate and to try to create more conversation about the topic, how to really stop these kinds of discrimination, racism, and hatred sometimes toward the queer refugees in general.
Yeah, and as you're saying, it's such a long discussion and such a complex discussion. But so I feel a bit bad asking this question, because I was going to say, do you have an example of an effective way of sharing your story without feeling like you have to compensate for the white gaze, to say like that, or the Dutch white gaze? But the word effective, I want to use that broadly, right? Like how you feel that it's
media,
effective.
In media, you mean?
When you say sharing a story, how do you feel that this sharing happens? Like, do you have an example of what feels?
Well, I think it can be like simple talks within our events. We try to expose the stories of refugees and asylum seekers. I think that social media is a very strong tool that we are using to do that. So whether on our social media pages like Facebook, Instagram, we are really trying to put asylum seekers and refugees, queer people, under the spotlight, so they can really share their stories, because Dutch people need to listen. Dutch white people really need to listen what's going on, and if they are they need to be like true allies by talking, like taking the information from us and really talk to their own community about what happened.
Yes, thank you so much, Maha. And let's move on to Kultikin Khan Akbulut. And I just want to shout out to Öner for your flags on your cheeks. Thank you.
Hello everyone. You can hear me? Okay. My name is Qlub again. Let me start with introducing myself. I am working as an art writer and editor. Mama and Lily talked about the mass media, so my talk is a little bit about that. I've been writing about contemporary art for about 6 years. I studied political science and international relations at Boğaziçi University, like we did. Now I am contributing many printed and online publications such as Gazete Duvar and Sanat Dünyamız. And I am also working as an editor of Speak Up platform. This is a project about censorship and self-censorship in arts and media. And I am also running a newsletter covering contemporary art for about 3 years. And now I am trying to transform this newsletter to a platform that independent art writers can contribute. It is titled argonautlar.com. I will share in this chat room. This name is from mythological figures, maybe you know the Argonauts, and it's also from the Maggie Nelson's wonderful book, wonderful novel. So you can ask me maybe what do I mean by contemporary art? I don't write about fancy blue chip artworks. I mainly focus on young artists, queer artists, and relationship between arts and activism. There is an association called Sehaq, and its aim is to support contemporary art for artists in Turkey. And every year, Sehaq invites an art writer to be their guest writer. This year, I am the guest writer, and they wanted me to write 12 articles for 1 year. But I offered them to share these articles with other writers. So I also write for Sehaq, and I also commission from other independent writers. For example, last month, Ali Büyük wrote an article on queer art in Turkey. Maybe we will translate this to English, but I don't know now. And also, I will write about experiences on art and activism in Turkey this month. For argonautlar.com platform, we are gonna have a new project on queer art history in Turkey. We got a small grant from ILGA, maybe you know, association. We will commission 9 articles and interviews about queer art in Turkey. And we will also hold some meetings, networking meetings from queer artists, between queer artists and media professionals, art writers. And we will have portfolio making workshops for queer artists, of course. This is a new project. We haven't started, we will start this month. So this is the first time actually I publicly announced this project. It's titled Bringing Queer Community Through Literature and Arts. We will have a literature part in this project. And some of the articles will be translated to English, and I will send the articles to you, of course. So maybe I can talk about the history of queer art in Turkey a little bit, because I made a small presentation last year with the invite of Dutch Consulate and Kübra, thanks to them. We can easily see that in Turkey, queer art started with the rise of queer movement in Turkey. Of course, we can see some elements about queer art through the Turkish art history, but it's very few. The first influential queer art exhibition was in 2008. It was titled Makul. Maybe we can translate it as conceivable, maybe. It was a collaboration between art initiative called Hafriyat and a LGBT association called Lambda Istanbul. Öner is here from Lambda Istanbul, of course. This exhibition was held at the Pride Week at June. After this exhibition, Pride Week committee organized exhibitions every year with different forms, with different creators. And so this process has come to this year. And for about 3 years, Pride Week's exhibitions varied. There's not just one official Pride Week exhibition. Last year, I saw 3 or 4 exhibitions, for example. One was made by Kübra and Ömer Tevfik, of course. And that means that range of queer art is expanding. There is not just one form of queer art or queer art exhibition model in Turkey. And despite all the prohibitions, all the government pressure, queers want to express themselves, and these exhibitions are a part of it. Their emotions, their feelings are represented by these artworks and these exhibitions, I think. And this is why I like these exhibitions. I write about these exhibitions. And I see that there are three main topics on queer artworks. I focus on what does queer artists tell us, what does their artworks represent. And I see that there are three main topics. The first one is body politics. As you can guess, this is the most same in the world. And the second is about the inner worlds, their feelings. And the third one is about relationship between activism and art. Of course, these topics cannot be separated from themselves, but we can see that there's a wide range of artistic expressions. So this is why I like about and I prefer to write about these exhibitions and these artworks. Man, this is the beginning of my comments.
Thank you. Yeah, could you just repeat the second one, because you had body politics and activism and art.
It was about inner worlds, queer people's inner worlds. They want to represent their feelings.
Ses oldu. Sorry.
Sorry. And could you say something about, do you feel as a critic and a writer, do you know a lot about the structure behind these exhibitions? Because you see the art, but I imagine you're also involved with the production of the art and understand the structures that produce the art and make it visible, or actually not visible. That's also possible, right?
Of course. Some of the exhibitions were held by open calls, and there was some jury and they were selecting. But in some exhibitions, exhibition committee invited some artists because it's a small community, so many people know themselves. For example, in some exhibitions there is a topic or curatorial team, so they invite on these curatorial teams, and the production is mostly held by actually solidarity, because there is not so much institutional supports, institutional fundings for these exhibitions. So they just collect some money from donors or some small founders, and they are just mostly zero budget exhibitions actually.
And the zero budget, of course, leads to underpayment, but on the other hand, you could also imagine that queer art production actually refuses the normative art world and the capital that's being circulated. Is that part of the questioning also in the art that you see?
Actually, there are some artists who make their living by just making arts. They have connections with galleries or other commercial stuff, but most artists who contribute these queer exhibitions wants to be independent, so they don't care yet. Of course, everyone cares about selling an artwork and making some money, but their main topic is not about selling the artwork. Their main topic is expressing themselves. So the making money or other stuff comes on the second or maybe the third one. There's a small, just little bit queer collectors also, so they are a little bit supportive on queer artists. So it's not a big art market in Turkey, but we can see that there is small solidarity groups.
Yeah, and I think maybe later Kubra can also say something about fundraising and how this is working at the moment. But I would like to continue. Thank you so much, Kultugan, to So. Here, So Rustiar. Hello.
Yes, I'm here.
And you just came fresh from the protest, right, in Amsterdam. Do you want to explain a little bit about that and how it was for you?
It was amazing. It was, there were about 5,000 people, I think even more than 5,000. And I don't believe that the media is going to say that there were thousands of people. They're going to probably speak about hundreds of people. It was really empowering. It was an honor for me to stand there and help out. The way it was organized, it was so professionally organized with the people to help to navigate actually on the street to keep the 1.5 meter distance and communication levels. And there was a small march at the beginning with coffins, white coffins, and big protest boards with Black Lives Matter signs. And
Because
at the end,
it was a Black queer trans pride and an anti-violence protest, and the first Black Pride in the Netherlands.
Yes, it was the first. I mean, last year, Black Pride and Queer Resistance Group had a protest. That was a really nice protest. That was, I believe, it was against. Oh yeah, I remember the manifest, the Nashville declaration, and they organized the first march with speakers. And this year it was like much more professional, bigger, and organized not only against something but really creating something. The whole manifestation was about visibility, and that Black people do exist, and that Black queer people do exist, and trans Black people do exist, and that they, to show that there is so much power if you organize with each other, that you don't need the system to organize yourself, but you are able to do it yourself with amount of allies. So it was really empowering and really nice the way it was organized, and also super creative and amazing speakers also.
And I don't want to get you out of your protest energy at all, but I do want to hear a little bit about your daily activism and organizing, because you work for Bijeen, which is a political party in Amsterdam, in the municipality.
Yeah.
And can you share a little bit about your work there and what you do as a council member?
Well, I'm not an official council member because council members needs to be elected by the voters. I'm a chosen one, which makes it a little bit unique. My work, to be honest, it's politics is a dirty thing. And I knew it already, and it's very difficult because in Amsterdam we have actually a very so-called left coalition with some left parties and neoliberal parties. Therefore, it shows itself that it's going to be very radical, very left ideas, and pro-LGBTQI, and that they're going to help marginalized people, and it's very anti-discrimination and anti-racism. But in reality, it's much harder actually for a political party as we are, radical left, and not only left, but also an anti-racist political party. Even though we have a left coalition, it's very difficult to get things moving when it comes to LGBT rights. I mean, 2 years ago when we started it, we tried to change the discourse, but it was not possible because they said all those things about like being left, being pro-queer, and being helping Muslim women and refugees. But when you wanted to really change policy, then they have always like this lame excuses that the people are not ready, that it's gonna cost a lot of money, and or that it's already happening. And I'm like, oh, how is it happening? Because people are still like starving on the streets and living on the streets, and the amount of homeless people, for example, are increasing in Amsterdam, but also refugee lives, especially with LGBT refugee lives. It's not being a very a nice life, even though it's in Amsterdam. Especially the violence is increasing, but also in Amsterdam. And it's funny, but like 2 years ago, I declared to have like this big campaign a year ago, a big campaign in favor of like against violence of LGBTQI, and it took them a year and about like 5-6 incidents to agree to have this campaign, and now it actually started. And but they made it in a broader spectrum, which I don't mind. But using activists on asking the gemeente, the municipality, asking them to stand there with their signs and to raise their voices against racism. While I'm like, those people and we, because I come actually from activism, we were the one who were like saying this for years, and now you're like taking action on things what should have been done years ago. So even though that they try to do, but the thing is that I realized that they don't want to try, because if they really want to change things, then we're gonna you're gonna change. If you want to change the system, and if you want to make a change in the system, that means that people need to give up their privilege. And I don't think that the Dutch society and even the leftist society and the queer white society is not ready to do that. I mean, everybody like can hold up their Black Lives Matter sign, but doesn't mean that they really understand what the sign is about and what the people, Black people, are really asking. So I find it very difficult, and it makes you sometimes like, it makes me sometimes impatient, but also hopeless, because it takes like so many discussions to change something, you know. Like there was like this housing discrimination about BPOC people being discriminated in the housing market here in the Netherlands, but also here in Amsterdam. And the first policy came 6 months ago, and I was like yelling like, come on people, it's like 2019. And half year later, we got like the same exact amount of numbers. It increased even. And but still they're like having these researches because they need more numbers to see if it's really accurate that racism really exists in Amsterdam. And I'm like, yeah, damn right, it exists. And we know it already for 100 years.
Yeah, I would love to ask you for an example of a LGBTQ intersectional policy, or if there is such a thing as a policy that is ever improving our lives, right? That you feel close to. But I'm also going to link it immediately to something, because again, I don't want to pull you out of your beautiful protest energy, and I'm already seeing politics coming in, which is also important, right? But I'm also thinking about your organizing outside of Bijeen, but outside of the political party, because you said I come from activism, but you're still in it also.
Yeah.
So could you share a little bit about that as well?
Well, to be honest, I see myself more as an activist than a politician.
Güzel. Ya Ali, kusura bakma ya, işimi hallettim ben, Turla ulaşacağım.
And it took me about a year, maybe longer, to accept myself as a politician, but I still don't. I still don't see myself as a politician, because I came from activism, and I came actually within activism because of the death of Mitch Enriquez. Was about 4 years ago. Brother got arrested, and then I actually entered into activism. Before that, I was working on helping with refugees to get a permit to stay in the Netherlands. And within activism, I'm active within the queer community, but also in the anti-racist community, in the feminist community, but I don't really understand what the feminist community really means, to be honest. Most of them are like TERFs. So, and as an activist, for me, it's very important. And a couple years ago, I saw activism as more as an the only way would be like to demonstrate, to go to protest, and to scream and be loud about it. But then I realized that art, body work, sexuality, and just being yourself and going on the street is already a form of activism. And as a person of color, I should have known that. But sometimes you're like, you know, you're having your head down and you're like just pushing into the system to get somewhere. And now, last year, we organized some workshops about sexuality and body with Fite Qlub to embrace and then empower ourselves as human beings to be able to go out the way I look today. Actually, that's the first time in my life that I did that on my own, from the house to the protest. It was scary as fuck, but I made it, and I'm proud now. But in order to do that, I think it's very important, and that's what Glenn Halberg also said today at the speech, is most of us are fighting with internalized shit from the system. And the biggest battle we have, it's not only in our head. And then we have a second battle, what is around us, with the world, with the system, with the society, what is telling us how to be and who to be. And in empowering yourself by working with your body, doing workshops, organizing workshops on consent, on other things to explore your body and your sexuality, I think it can free yourself and free us from fear and mostly shame. So that's what I'm trying to build and do. And I'm still a noob in it, to be honest. So I'm also discovering myself as a trans, non-binary, I don't know how to identify myself actually, basically, as a human being, trying to explore my gender identity and also my sexuality. What is it what I like and what is it what I don't like, without like having all kinds of forms of stamps. And within the white queer community, I see that they are like building more systems within the system instead of like freeing ourselves within the system. So adding more labels and more labels and more labels. Well, I'm like, no, man, the whole fucking label system is made by capitalism to categorize us, to marginalize us. So in order to get out of the system, we have to stop doing that.
I'm seeing a lot of nods. I would really love to pull everybody in, and I'm going to ask you one more question. So, because I would like to pull everybody in by talking about how we organize right now in the current moment. And since you're talking about body practices, and of course, Lilith HB's practice is also involving that. Like, how do we do that right now? And then the organizing of Sehaq, and then Cultigan's exhibitions, right? Like, how do we do that at this moment? Just pulling everybody slowly in. But there was a question I had that I'm now forgetting for you. So it's not gonna come when I look at everybody's faces. Yeah, let's just start with that question then, because I saw that Fite Qlub, for example, had an event organized but had to cancel that. How's that happening right now for you?
Well, I think it's very difficult to organize during COVID workshops where you have to have physical maybe interactions. And I actually learned by Karada House. It's very amazing queer community in Berlin. With it's not only white people. It's like a lot of BPOC people are organizing as well. And they actually started to do their workshops online, which was really amazing because you don't have to go to Berlin and you don't have to pay a lot. So you could digitally actually explore by yourself with your body. And that's one of the moments actually that I realized that I like pain pleasure, but by doing it with yourself, but you can also have your partner with you to be able to practice it. So we tried to do that, but it was really difficult because everybody was like drained. I was also drained. Like COVID came and everybody was like already like shivering and exhausted. So it took us all a while to understand what is actually happening with our bodies and with our minds. And I think what you see within extreme right in the worldwide, why they got so strengthened and grown so fast is because they connected with each other first. They used social media as a very tactical way. And secondly is that they, or thirdly, I think, is that they organized within different strategies and on different levels. They had people who were like going with guns and everything on the streets, but they have also now people within the politics, and they strengthen each other. And I think that with it, when it comes to queer, left, anti-racist movements, climate movements, and we want to all change the world, I think we need to use all the tactics we can use within activism to change people's minds.
All the time you.
Yeah, I think bringing back the body, I remembered also that I wanted to ask you, but I'm going to throw it open to everybody, maybe to respond to each other. And everybody, I mean, the four speakers at the moment, but if somebody has a question, you can put it up in the chat. Because I would also love to hear Lilith HP, for example, about body practice. In terms of, I was thinking about disability, like when you're thinking about organizing Fite Qlub as a body practice, like how you're taking that in consideration, but also not in consideration, of course, but in embodiment. And then also thinking about mental health, how you're dealing with that from a body practice instead of getting into a institutionalized psychology that also has one sort of singular norm of what healthy means. I'm just throwing it out there, which is maybe weird to just throw it out there, but I would love to hear also Lilith HB, because I know that in the residence, this is also something that's coming up, right? Thank you so much.
Yes, the disability is one of the themes that focus on, and because as a society, we are so used to normalizing one type of body and claiming that all the other healthy ones are anormal. And even in art, actually, during, let's say, painting, when you study painting, you are learned how to draw a human body and their human anatomy, actually. And we are so used to normalizing just one type, but we are all actually thinking about here which one is the normal and at what point the other one is anormal, or being anormal, is it something problematic, or it's a problem actually.
Yeah, Maha, do you want to jump in also in terms of embodiment or being a body in space and what that means for you in activist organizing? You're muted.
Yeah. Okay. So I believe that the main problem that we are dealing with when it comes to our bodies in Sehaq and as asylum seekers and refugees in general is the idea of white people and this vision they have about how exotic we are. when we are talking about white people, they don't really look at who we are, or what do we stand for, our struggle, our history, our culture. We are some brown people and black people who they see in movies and who are like perceived as bad people and ignorance and uneducated and a lot of things, that a lot of assumptions that they make about our bodies. They believe that we are actually like I've heard a lot of talks coming from Dutch white people about refugees, that they are they like to engage with white people on sexual level, although it is totally the other way around. So I think that this is the main thing that we are trying to really change the subject on, and try to like, this is not who we are. You know, like I can say a lot and make a lot of assumptions about other bodies and about a lot of things about other colors, races, ethnicities, but this is not the case. You know, this is not sometimes it does identify you when it comes to your struggle, but this is not how we should look at each other. It's a very, again, it's something that a lot of people need education on. We need to be open about it. We need to talk more about it. We need to address those issues when it comes to, again, white people trying to look at us in this exotic way.
Yes, and Kutlin, do you relate you described queer art and the three, like what it represented: body politics, inner worlds, and activism art. In terms of the body politics, is this idea of visibility, is that how it's coming in, or could you describe?
Actually, we can see the body politics mostly in the performance art, like Lilith did. But maybe I can show you an exhibition, so an example that I am sharing now on the chat room. This is an artwork titled "The Empowering Costume." It is made by Hasan Aksaygın. He is living in Berlin now. And this costume is about, actually it's a standard heroic costume. And this hero name is Jihad, but it's written in different ways. You can see in the my article, but it's in Turkish. And for example, this artwork represents that how white German gaze reacts to black or brown people coming from Middle East, how these black or brown Middle Eastern gaze become an object of desire, both, and fear, a kind of something to fear. And this is a dilemma of Middle Eastern gaze always see in the West, Upper West, of course, because they are some kind of exotic in some terms, but they are also something to fear, because they can harm them, they can steal their money or something else. So these kind of body politics and these kind of body issues are represented in exhibitions, and that can be a maybe good example for you.
Yeah, please share. I didn't see it yet in the chat. Since I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, which is good because you haven't had a chance to ask each other a question. So I just want to throw it open. If one of you four speakers want to ask another speaker a question, I know that's very open way, but since we have little time, I'm gonna throw it open anyway. And if you're silent, that's fine, because they can just go on with DJ Mama Kill. But you might have heard some things that you feel related to, or that feels like a different context, or I'm deliberately unmuting.
Well, I think since, I mean, we are all someone said, I would like to hear Soul's perspective. I don't know on what. So many topics have been
on the question of disability within Fite Qlub. And
we had a very limited amount of resources, to be honest, and that's a general problem, I think, everywhere with queer communities not having a lot of resources. I remember that sometimes we like organize a whole party with like 100 or 150 euros, you know, and try to get money out of it, and then you see that the money is actually really floating within our community because our community does not have the capital to be able to actually inject the capital back into the community. So we had just one location, and we tried there to and it was not wheelchair accessible at all. And we knew that, so we were like, well, let's try this, and then maybe next time we can find another space so we can be able to make it accessible for everyone. But when it comes to safety or health, it's one of the things is like I went to several cities to enter this sex positive workshops and stuff, but it was only white, and it was like mostly cisgendered, and I could just count people of trans people or people of color were like, it was only mostly me, and I didn't fit there because my perspective was totally different than white perspective, and I had to like continue, and I felt like being pushed in doing things which I didn't do, but I felt also ashamed to not do it. And so for me it was so important that if you organize things like that, first of all you need to make the space before already so accessible that BPOC and trans people are gonna come to the space, and then when it's there it needs to be centered about them and not about white people, and that's what we said also, BPOC centered. Thirdly, for mental preparation also, but also aftercare, it's important to always have a long time to enter people, to make the space safe, and to close off so people can really like when they come back to the main space, so they can like really chill and talk with each other. And it was amazing, and a lot of people really loved it because they were like experiencing for the first time to being in a space and being vulnerable and being open about it and feeling safe. But in order to do that, I think we need to also think from our perspectives, because most of us have traumas, severe traumas, and can be triggered by everything, and therefore you need to think from different perspectives to make the space as safe as possible. And I think it's easier if the people who are being affected by things like that organizing, so because they can think about different perspectives.
And in terms of embodiment, do you feel like you've met each other now, Lilith, Maha, So, Gultigin? Even though it's on the screen? This is not like it's not a good or bad question. It's just.
Yeah.
Or maybe somebody wants to ask a question, a last question.
Maybe I can ask a question to Maha. Maha, can you talk about your parties and how art is involved in these parties? How do you combine activism, politics, and art in these parties and in these gatherings? Maybe this can be a little bit influence for us.
Yeah, well, mainly in our parties, people are doing art and performances. They are refugees as well. We are encouraging them to actually do their art, because when we're talking about arts that are done by refugees, by queer refugees, you can never find space that's encouraging them or engaging them or giving them the stage to actually do what they want to do. So within Sehaq, we're trying to build this safe space for them so they can be themselves. And we like so when we are organizing a party, we usually have a call out. So anyone who have something to do, whether it's DJing or dancing or spoken word or poetry reading or performing. Everyone is welcome to do that. Everyone, we're trying to give people the opportunity to express themselves. So it's not like we tell them you have to talk about this or talk about that. We believe that all of them, they have their own experience, they have their own politics, they have their own beliefs, and it's about make them more vocal, give them the voice that they have lost. I've also seen that in the last 3 years that Sehaq has been working a lot of queer refugees have rediscovered their talents. They have been, yeah, I see Mama's doing that because yeah, she's the main DJ of Sehaq, and I'm sure she's better in talking about her experience and in what we're doing. But again, it's about giving them a voice, about giving them the space, about make them visible in the art scene and in the queer art scene in the Netherlands.
Maybe I can ask one more question. These parties are wonderful places to express themselves, but in Turkey, many queer parties are organized for funding also, because these people are mostly unregistered, and many queer people cannot work in regular jobs, and these ticket prices can be a little bit hard for them for living, some kind of little allowances maybe. Do you have that kind of stuff in your works?
Well, Sehaq is a very we have like recently trying to grow bigger as an organization, but we are mainly a donation-based organization, so we depend on donations so we can carry on with our activities. And in the spaces that we organize our events, we usually have a policy that queer refugees can enter for free. And we try to make some donations, like we have sometimes like a donation box for the artists who are doing the work. Because also like when you're talking about the Dutch system, the government really like to monitor any kind of money that enters your account, and the government really want to monitor that. So we try to make it in the form of a donation for the queer artists, especially most of them are still in the process, so they don't have like a bank account. We also have a very big group of undocumented refugees who do art. So that's impossible for them to, like, they don't even have a work permit or any other resources that they can use.
Oh, that's bad. Being a third world country like Turkey can be helpful for this, because we don't register these monies, and so it can be a cash or something.
Yeah. And I think we will also come back on September 1st on fundraising through art, and also what it means to be commodified as a queer artist. That will be the talk of September 1st. I'm sorry that I'm cutting y'all off, because the conversation is just starting. So if you want to continue questioning and sharing ideas with each other, find us on Through the Window project, and we can connect each other, etc. I hope that's okay. Because for now, I really want to thank Maha Youssef and Soros Dayar and Kultigun, I have it written, Khan Akbulut, and then where's Lilith HB? Yes, you're there. Thank you so much. I see. Because we're now, stay around. We're gonna dance. You've already been introduced, Mama Kill, also known from Sehaq, and tonight our DJ. And then after Mama Kill, we will also hear Kubra. And then we would love to see you back on September 1st to continue actually exactly the conversation that just started. Thank you so much.